Hi, and welcome to November and Beyond. I am the host, the de facto host, I'll say, Dave Kirkpatrick, and I am going to introduce Paul Krautmann. Paul is a Keene resident. He's running for U.S. Senate. He's running against incumbent Jean Shaheen from here in New Hampshire, and we're going to talk to him today out in the field. I'm also just going to let you know I'm the de facto host because I would like to invite other people to come in and sit in the driver's seat and host a show here. And we've had a bit of a format change here, what with the times we're in, and I'd like to tell you all about that, and sometime when I have more time, I'll give you the rundown on what's going on with November and Beyond. But we're going to get right off and hear what Paul has to say, but first this.
Hi, my name is Amanda Elizabeth Toll, and I'm running for the New Hampshire House of Representatives, District Cheshire 16. Please vote for me in the Democratic primary on September 8th. Thank you.
Hey, welcome back, and thanks for joining us. I'm here today with Paul Krautmann, who is running for U.S. Senate. And I'd say welcome to the show, but you really welcome me to your backyard for this for this piece. Here we want to find out a little bit about you and
So Dave, here we are in our backyard here in Court Street in Keene. My wife and I and my 3 kids have lived here for 41 years, and the reason I'm running for the Senate is over the years, you ought to be at our dinner table. I've been kind of moaning and groaning about the state of the world and the state of the country, and essentially my wife finally put her foot down and said, well, what are you going to do about it? And so I said, well, I guess I'll run for the Senate against Senator Shaheen. And my disagreements with Senator Shaheen are, over the years, Senator Shaheen has voted for every military budget, the National Defense Authorization Act, which the 2021 Authorization Act calls for $740 billion. And that seems like a lot of money, and to just about anybody who thinks about it. My other issue with Senator Shaheen is she does not back Bernie Sanders and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, which say that we ought to have universal health care or Medicare for all. So those 2 issues are my big issues with Senator Shaheen, and I think that we in New Hampshire deserve a voice in those 2 issues, and she is not it, and I am. So that's kind of where I stand. I have some other issues with Senator Shaheen, but those are the 2 major ones.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I see the same thing. I see, and her, and we mentioned Maggie Hassan earlier as well, who are, they're Democrats. They're doing a pretty reasonable job here and there, but they're often the folks who help the other team along with, like you said, the military spending or so the health care. No, we can't do that really. The livable wage and that type of thing.
Correct.
A lot of no's, a lot of places where they're just not, good enough or better than the Republicans. Isn't going to cut it for long.
Yes, and Senator Shaheen, if she's a member of the Armed Services Committee in the Senate and the Foreign Affairs Committee, those are both pretty powerful committees, but if you check out her website, she really says nothing about what she does on those committees or what those committees do, and except for the fact that she votes for the military budget, for example, because of national security. And to me, national security, anytime a politician uses those 2 words, it means they're not going to do anything for you. It's just a cover-up. They hide behind that issue of national security, especially Democrats, because Democrats don't want to be cast as against the military. That's just a death knell. So they all buy into it. I mean, the military budget passes the Senate, for example, on a 90-10 vote or something similar. Every year, it's the so-called bipartisan issue that they all get behind.
Yeah, it seems to me that that's simply a way to move money to the people who have funded their campaigns. It hasn't been about security in a long time.
Yeah, we all know that war, a fellow by the name of Butler wrote a book back in the 30s, and he was a Marine general, Smedley Butler, and the title of the book, you should all read it. It's very short. It takes about 2 hours to read. And it's not that crazily well written, but it's called War is a Racket. And at some point in General Butler's career, he realized that being in the military was nothing but working for he didn't coin the phrase at the time, but he was working for the military-industrial complex.
Yep.
Somebody was making tons of money on the military and its institutions of war.
And how quickly our veterans are disposed of when they're done digging the holes and hauling the ammunition back and forth. We don't seem to take very good care of our own folks.
No, to me it's a national disgrace. There are a number of national disgraces that I have, but one of them is we go to war. This most recent, the permanent war that started back in 2001 with the invasion of Afghanistan, and yet you have all these organizations that are trying to take care of these wounded military people. Well, we're supposed to take care of them. It's the government that sent them to get blown up. So these kind of GoFundMe organizations are, it's just a disgrace to me.
I had one of those conversations at the town dump, the place where we all meet, where somebody must have seen one of my Facebook posts or something and seemed to be responding angrily to maybe something I had said. And what I remember him saying to me was, "But ours first, right? Ours first." And I resisted the urge to continue this conversation.
Yes.
But that sort of implies we're going to take care of our own, somebody.
Right.
The people who need food here, the people who need shelter, the people who have served us. And the point is we don't. So you can't really say ours first if you mean you're not going to take care of anybody
exactly
at all. And I would call that a disgrace. I absolutely. The amount of money we spend on the military-industrial complex, which is what it is, just pales in comparison to what it would cost to get our veterans into shelters, to provide treatment and the types of things that we need in communities, as opposed to jail. I mean, they'll spend, the latest figure I heard was $70,000 a year to keep somebody incarcerated.
Yes.
And if you just gave people half of that, they'd be doing fine. They don't need to break into your home if they got a steady income of $35,000.
It's funny when you talk about the government giving money away. Andrew Yang, the young guy who was running for the Senate in the New Hampshire primary, his position was I can't remember what he called it, but his position was, let's give everybody a couple of $1,000s a month.
Yep.
And that would stimulate the economy. It just would do wonders for this country. And as a matter of fact, that's kind of what's happening with the pandemic. All of a sudden, the government's giving everybody, trying to equalize their paychecks when they're out of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems a bit ham-fisted, though. It seems to me they're just writing everybody a check. Was a really easy answer, as opposed to figuring out who needs it and how we can help the people who really do.
Yeah, and of course, I think if you read any of those bills, I read part of the first one. I can't remember what it was called, but they had given millions of dollars to the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., which I guess is a good thing, but it doesn't benefit anybody in Keene, New Hampshire. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's certainly a lot of work to be done. And I started this show, and the show is November and Beyond, and I thought I would be, at this point, still chasing primary candidates around New Hampshire. There should still be a primary going on. We should be making a choice on September 8th.
Yeah.
We no longer have that choice.
Yeah.
But there's so much to be done locally, and there's, of course, the whole kit and caboodle in the national governing body. But yeah, there's so much work to be done. So I'm glad to be letting as many people get their word in edgewise as it is. And I'm just very happy to know good people running.
Yeah.
So,
well, another issue, Dave, is the fact that and the Social Security system. They're always. In fact, I think they're talking about it again, about the fact that. The president wants to do away with the payroll tax, which essentially is the Social Security tax, which is 6.2% of your income. And there's a tax cap. There's a wage cap on that tax, and this year it's $137,700, which means that if you make more than that, you're still only going to pay 6.2%, or it's like $8,500 in taxes. Why don't they tax 6.2% of the guy who makes $1 million or $500,000?
Absolutely.
That would start funding Social Security, it seems, as opposed to moaning and groaning as they do about Social Security going broke. Well, let's fund it. Let's tax the rich people. The rich people. It's the tax system that helped to make the rich people rich, and they should be They should be so glad to pay more in taxes to their fellow citizens, I think.
You'd think that that would be the right thing to do, whether it's for your beliefs, your personal beliefs, whether it's for the patriotism, the health of our nation.
Patriotism, good word.
Whether it's just neighbor helping neighbor, which, when I was a kid, all of those were good things. None of that was fighting words.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's something else. And I liken it to tax the rich, get the money where the money's being generated. If they're telling us that Amazon is, look, the money Bezos makes, my goodness, there is so much money. So, your house catches fire, heaven forbid, and the fire department shows up, and the hydrants are no good, and there's a pond across the street, but you got a little puddle in your backyard, and you stick the hose in the pond. You don't go use up what's in the backyard first and say, well, that's his water. Let's use up his water, and then if he needs some more water, we'll go across. You go to where the resources are for this sort of thing. And the people making the money should absolutely be contributing, paying at least their fair share.
Yeah, it really irritates me how, and I'm not running against the Republicans, I'm running against Senator Shaheen, but it tickles me how, it doesn't tickle me, it irritates me how the Republicans use that S word, that socialism, and as if, oh my gosh, this country is going to be a socialistic society if the Democrats, if Joe Biden wins the presidency. Well, that's the furthest thing that's going to happen to this country. But if you look at what we do, that's socialism. The street out there, do I maintain my section of the street? No, the city does. Do I self-insure my house and my car? No, that's a big pool of money. That's called socialism, folks, and it's with us. It's been with us for a long, long time, and those are the kinds of things for example, with health care. Why should a guy who has a job and has adequate health benefits, and he loses his job, and all of a sudden he doesn't have any insurance? What's he to do? The common health insurance policy, at least when I last looked at it, which is a number of years ago, is like for two people $10,000. That's a ton of money for almost everybody, and there's a way to figure that out so that everybody is insured, and we would pay a little bit more in taxes for it. My goodness, we've been paying a Medicare tax for since 1965, and if you look at your pay voucher, it's right there. It's 2.7% or something every paycheck. That's what we're paying for Medicare, which benefits people like me who are over 65. But why don't we extend that to people who are 55 or 45, or for everybody who would just pay some more in taxes?
Yep, and it benefits me if my neighbor is healthy. It benefits me if my neighbor is, able to afford insurance, able to afford decent food. The idea that we're all our own little island and everything else can burn around us is just mistaken.
That's
it's
another issue. And some people talk about it. Some of the people that I've read, Andrew Basovich, who's a retired colonel, he talks about that's part of national security. That there,
yes.
It's a word that goes back a long ways, and it's become kind of a dirty word. But the welfare of the people is national security. If everybody kind of is on an even playing field, that's what makes us a strong society.
Yep. And you'd think it would not be really all that debatable. That's in the Constitution. Promotes
Yes.
the general welfare.
Correct. Oh, good point. Yes.
That is a founding principle of us.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why that can be controversial at this point. I know there's a perception that immigration and that equal rights, somehow we weren't maybe talking about those people. You know, there's just a lot of broken thinking out there.
Yeah, there is.
But also you can't be applying technology or philosophy, I should say, that was working in the 50s. You can't really be doing that in 2020. You know, maybe that insurance through your employer made a lot of sense back then.
Yes.
In fact, it did. It was successful. It was a good program, and it worked. But the days when you get a good job at a good company, work your way up to become the boss, and retire there, those days are gone.
They're gone.
We need modern solutions to
Correct.
the problems we
Correct.
face today. And that's what I really appreciate about the progressive movement. I mean,
Yeah.
imagine you're building a house, and you got all the sticks up, you got the whole thing framed, and a hurricane comes along and wrecks the thing. Well, that's regressive. You know, you want progress. You want to see progress going on. You want to come by next week and the siding's up. The week after that,
Oh,
they're framing
absolutely.
the roof. If you want to take it back to where it was, you're talking about a pile of sticks. And at some point, that pile of sticks was somebody's bread and butter. But, you know, we're trying to build a house here.
Yeah, yeah. You know, there's a couple of other issues that kind of are burrs in my saddle, and one is the fact that congressional people in Congress, when a fellow retires from the Senate or from the House, or a woman does, they turn right around, they stay in Washington D.C. and they become high-paid lobbyists for the drug companies, for example, or other industries, and that's an absolute conflict of interest for a congressperson, a retired congressperson. And the same way with the military retirees, these generals who retire from the Air Force or from the Army or the Marines, and they turn right around and become on the board or the CEO of Raytheon or one of the other arms manufacturers. It's just such a conflict of interest. I think there ought to be laws that bar that kind of thing. I think those kinds of people, like retired senators, should just go home and get a job if she is still of the age to get a job. I don't see why they have to stick around and get paid big bucks in Washington D.C. for lobby firms.
That's one of that is my top issue. Excuse me, is get the money out of politics.
And
we can't fix any of the other problems until we get the people who pull the strings, these corporations.
yeah.
Our representatives should be representing us.
And this is you folks might laugh, but I don't know if you notice how the politicians, especially the men, I haven't noticed so much the women, but they wear these little flag lapel pins. It drives me crazy. I think they ought to be like NASCAR drivers or professional golfers. I think they ought to display on their suits the logo of their campaign contributors, so that we know where their loyalty lies. Because for the most part, we don't know where their loyalty lies. It doesn't lie with us, for example. It lies with the corporations that fund them and the lobbyists who give them money, to get things done, so to speak.
Yeah, and they're not even hiding it anymore. You can see it
and
pretty darn clearly. Something
Yeah.
like 67% of us want to see universal health care or something like it.
Correct.
And yet our representatives just vote the other way because they apparently know better, or
Yeah.
somebody else whispered in their ear. The people clearly are letting them know what they want.
Yeah, and I'm running as a Democrat in the primary because I'm opposing Senator Shaheen, but it's crazy if you watch what just happened last week with the Democratic National Convention and the Democratic National Committee. They've totally eliminated universal health care, for example, from the agenda. And I also would point out to you that there's never any talk of war. In fact, during the New Hampshire primary back in the first part of this year, the only candidate that talked about the war was Tulsi Gabbard, and she got I don't know, 2% of the vote. She was the only. The rest of them, even Senator Sanders, for the most part, didn't talk about the military budget or things like that.
Yeah, I really like Tulsi for that reason.
Yeah.
She has served. She's seen it.
Yes.
She's tough as nails. Have you ever seen her like workout videos?
No.
It's like, oh my goodness, she's she is tough as nails. She runs and she does her crunches and all this kind of stuff.
That's nice.
But so she's talking about end the wars, and I think that's I think that's our highest moral priority. I think we have to get the money out to fix our government, but we can't be just constantly at war and going on.
No, we've just done so much harm to the world.
Yeah.
By killing all these people and putting them at risk. And the other thing about the foreign policy aspect is all these sanctions that the United States, I think sometimes through the United Nations, impose on these poor people, like all the sanctions during the Clinton administration of Iraq. They weren't doing any harm to Saddam Hussein. I was in Iraq, and I saw firsthand some of the palaces that he had, and the sanctions had no effect on him. They affected the common guy who's trying to keep his job and raise his family, and God knows, because of medical care was curtailed because of the sanctions, and they say that thousands of people died because of that.
Absolutely. In any, and they sanitize it, in any conflict, right?
It's a conflict. That's right.
In any conflict, the citizens bear the great majority of the harm, the damage to their homes and cities and ecosystems.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine, I often have said this to people over the years, can you imagine tanks running up and down your street and the flag of for example, Iraq on that tank? I don't own a gun. I shouldn't say that, but I don't own a gun. But I think if I saw tanks running up and down my street, I think I would buy a gun and start shooting.
Yup. Yeah, the idea that they're not welcoming us with open arms. Well, we brought mostly munitions with us. We didn't bring big buckets of food.
No.
Blankets.
No. That didn't work out very well.
Yeah. What a disaster. Well, I like this, and I would like to remind the viewers out there, and I guess I'm not reminding them if I haven't said it yet, but we met at the Peace Rally here in Keene.
Yes.
And every Saturday, Jeff, and I don't know if I know his last name.
Jeff Scott.
Jeff Scott, okay. He's down there holding the signs for peace. He's inviting us to take part. It's 11 o'clock on Saturdays.
11 to noon on Saturdays. We call ourselves the Keene Peace Vigil. I started going when I retired from the military in late 2005, after I'd been to Iraq. And we're a pretty persistent group, and we welcome anybody to show up and chat. Just like Dave. Dave shows up every once in a while, and we have good conversation.
Yes, yeah, and it's a really neat group, and they're there rain or shine. I'm there when I can get there, and if it's raining, I don't always move.
It gets a little chilly some Saturday mornings also, but
I really appreciate that effort as well.
Thank you.
So, is there anything else? I guess maybe just to recap. What are the main points that you're going to bring? You're running against Jeanne Shaheen.
Yes, Senator Shaheen. Yes, my big issues with Senator Shaheen is over the years she's voted for the military budget without question. And this year, next year, 2021 budget is $740 billion. And I just think that money can be spent elsewhere. I don't think that we need aircraft carriers running all over the world. I don't think we need nuclear-armed submarines running all over the world. We have those things now. And I don't think we need modernization of our nuclear armaments, which was proposed initially by by none other than President Obama back in 2016 before he left office. That's costing like $3 trillion over the next 20 years. We have enough nuclear arms right now to blow everybody to smithereens. So why do we need to, what they call, modernize this thing? But we're doing it. And those are the kinds of things that happen. And most of you, unless you really keep up with it, you don't realize these things are happening. My other issue is universal health care and access to affordable prescriptions. And that's just about it. Neither Senator Keene, let's put it this way, disagrees with me on both of those issues.
Yeah. Well, I've got to say, I appreciate anyone giving one of the incumbents a run for their money, because that's part of the problem too. So I thank you for running, and thank you for the things that you
Thanks,
do, and
Dave.
for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and we'll be right back. Thanks for watching. And that's the show for today. That is Paul Krautmann. He'll be on the ballot September 8th. I hope you're planning on getting to the polls if you haven't already done your thing with the absentee ballots recommended these days. And we're all a little bit nervous about the postal system. Suddenly, huh? Isn't that strange? A lot of people I know are walking them into the town clerk and making sure they get delivered. I'll take a minute to remind you I am indeed looking for guest hosts for this show. If you would like to be the one asking the questions, come on, give me a holler. Here's my info on the screen. I'm also looking for guests to be on the show, and I don't need a whole half-hour commitment from you. If you are a down-ticket candidate, if you've got stuff going on in the community that people should know about, stuff that benefits us all and makes it a better place for everyone, please let me know what you're up to. I would be glad to promote your event for you or talk with you about it, however that works out, whatever floats your boat. A lot of ways to do it, and I'm doing plenty of production that is COVID safe these days. So outdoors, indoors, Zoom it, however you want to do it. Come on the show. That's all I have time for, and I guess we'll just see you next time.